Hey, Joanna.
Oh, hey, Jen. Hey.
It's like your tag opening hello for me. I love it.
I'm so happy to be back here with you, with my big fat mic, and for us to be chatting because taking a break from podcasting with you is time off I never, ever want to have again.
Yeah, but luckily, even though we
Mhm.
took podcast time off, we had in person time because where were we just this past month?
I'm so glad you asked, Jen. We were in Tuscany leading a retreat called BEtreat with a group of women they were incredible individually, and then the collective magical bubble it formed was really special.
I couldn't agree more. I felt like I walked away with new family members. It was just beyond my expectations.
Yeah. People, since we've gotten back, people keep saying, "Oh, how was Italy? How was the retreat?" And it's sometimes when you have such a profound experience, it can be challenging to sum it up in a sentence. So the way that I just shared it was I said, everything that I expected, dreamed, or hoped it would be, it was even beyond that. It really was beyond everything.
Me too. I use the word magical very frequently in this particular question because there was nothing short of magic that I think transpired. But that's not a word that I like to use freely because I feel like it's a very special word reserved for very special experiences. But this was that. This was absolutely
Oh,
that for me. And that actually leads us to the topic of today's podcast, which is why do we go on retreat? Not we, as in Joanna and I, why do we, as a collective people, who are in this work, who are in this realm of self exploration and self discovery and improvement and personal growth, why do we retreat? How does that help us? And that's what we'd like to talk about today.
the first time I ever did a retreat, Jen, I was by myself and I was in my 20s and my grandmother, my mom had passed away, and I felt like I had done all the family healing like with them together, and I knew intuitively I needed something and I needed something by myself. So ironically, I just looked up catalogs like local places to go on a yoga retreat, and I just thought I want to do yoga outside, and I found a catalog for a place that showed people doing yoga outside. Ironically, there was no yoga outside when I got there, but it got me, and it got me in the door. And to have that exposure at such an early age really impressed upon me the benefits of participating on a retreat, which ultimately led to us having the desire to lead them. But really, you have the combination of space and time to think, to heal, to imagine, to discover. You have full immersion, where if you really want to experience a new feeling or learn a new language or do anything that's a shift in mind, body, spirit, full immersion is the ultimate environment to facilitate that.
Before you and I started talking about retreats together, because really our original plan was workshops and we were going to be teaching together and we were thinking a bit smaller, but when we finally started thinking about retreats, I'd been on retreats with my husband and I had been on day retreats, but I had never given myself permission to do a full immersion retreat where it was just me away for a space of time from everyone and everything that was just about myself. Because I think as women, especially, we have a very hard time giving ourselves that permission, that it's almost a luxury, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? Because you look at it like, oh, it is in itself, it's selfish, but this is the kind of selfish that you need to be sometimes so that you can be selfless in the rest of your life. And so I was a little bit scared of it, but I had been listening to this podcast, and I'm going to give a shout out to Aubrey Marcus right now. His podcast talks a lot about the different types of retreats that he offers, but also the types of retreats he's been on. And a lot of his guests talk about those. And every single episode that I've listened to that talked about the experiences that people have had in these retreats has been so profound, so deep, so introspective, and so fulfilling that when they came back into the world, into their regular lives, they weren't just changed, they were improved and they were better and more balanced in the way that they attacked and were attacked by life.
Sure. And I would say, doubling down on that, some of my biggest decisions I've made, some of my most transformational ahas have often happened either while on a retreat or on the car ride, plane ride, or journey home. All of a sudden, you have this clarity that the perspective of distance provides, and things that you might have been stuck on or dreams that you forgot to dream. Anything has the space to come up. So, you and I, for those people who haven't heard us mention this before, we teach a course called Best Life Ever, and it's virtual. And it was born from necessity during COVID. We had to gather virtually. What I loved about that was the perfect antidote to what I called the retreat hangover. Like, how do you have this amazing, magical experience, then come home and apply it within the context of your real life? Best Life Ever was perfect for that because we gather once a week, and then you had the regular 7 days in your normal life to really play with these tools within that context. It wasn't like you were in this retreat bubble where you have a vegan chef and you're like, la, 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 life is amazing here. I don't have potholes or dishes in the sink or any real life. That was a good antidote to that, which is ironic because as soon as we started doing Best Life Ever sessions, the biggest question we would get when it ended was, I'm going to miss the people in this group. Can we do a weekend or a retreat version of this? So it's so funny that each of them actually justified and warranted the other. So when we finished our retreat last week in Tuscany, we had people saying, I don't want to go without this time and these reminders. And to that, we kind of said, okay, join us for our weekly Best Life Ever that we do virtually for that reason. But being away with you and with this group of ladies, Jen, so reminded me the magic and the importance of what you cannot do virtually. The feeling of being together for a literal and metaphorical hug was so important, to be able to hold space and eat with people, drink with people, explore with people while tuning in and tapping into these major experiences in life was unbelievably profound. First of all, I'm going to give you a quick little rapid fire so that we let our listeners know. Where were we, Jen?
Tuscany, Siena,
Yeah.
Monteroni d'Arbia, which is the name of the town in Tuscany in Siena.
And what's the name of the villa?
It was called Podere Macchione, which is Podere is like kind of the word for farm, and Macchione is the name of the actual farmhouse that we were on. And it was a centuries-old villa that had been restored over 7 years by a beautiful couple who one of them actually helped co-lead our retreat. Her name is Callie, and she's a yoga instructor. But Podere Macchione, look it up on Instagram under Restoring Macchione, and we'll put that in the notes.
Yes. And then we also had our other partner in crime over there, Jordana, and she helped organize all of our excursions. She led a plant ritual that was really cool and amazing. And she also taught our landscape watercolor painting class. And her husband, tell who her husband is.
We also forgot Jordana also led us in a group tarot session as well. She's a woman of many talents.
Yeah, listen, guys, this retreat was totally put together by amazingly sparkly good witches.
But then go ahead, please do not let me interrupt you, because our chef, Jordana's husband, Massimiliano, was one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met, but his talents in the kitchen, wow.
It started a hashtag that Jordana's not loving because it's like hashtag I miss Mossy, but it's real. And the last night when he made the porcini, the mushroom risotto with the porcini, that he said, I met my friend in the wood and got the porcini. The mushroom was bigger than our head, and I love mushrooms. I looked at Jordana and I said, sorry in advance if I lick his face or do anything inappropriate. It's really not about Mossy. It's about what he did with these mushrooms. Oh my God.
But I think really the whole point is, back to rapid fire, the best parts of the retreat weren't just the human beings that were part of it. Actually, that's not true. The best parts of the retreat were the human beings, but the second best parts were the coming together of all of these magical elements. And when I say magical, I mean it here.
Yeah.
Because Joanna, give us a quick list, besides what we just named with Jordana and with Mossy, what are some other things that we highlighted and we did during this retreat that you would say were some of the best features?
Okay, I loved the balance between the personal development and empowerment work like we would do in Best Life Ever. We did an exercise that was super powerful on the first full day, and that could be a doozy. It's quite intense, but it was so powerful that they had the chance to release something so big as we began our experience. So I loved the arc. We worked 4 workshops into the 6-day retreat, and we balanced it beautifully with being in the bubble that we created of this magical villa nestled in lavender fields, smelled amazing, surrounded by incredible people and great food. But then we also had a nice combination, because otherwise, why do it in Italy? Of exploring historical cities and gorgeous wineries and amazing locations and shopping and all of the things, pasta making courses, the watercolor painting. We did such a nice balance of the spiritual work with the play, because connection and play is just as important as the intense workshop content we could ever offer.
Absolutely. The balance for me, I think, was really that we were able to get in the deep work, but then on top of the cultural stuff with the shopping and the food and the wine and even we got to go to wineries and do things where we learned about the process of how things are actually done in Italy. And even the ingredients in our foods in our meals were given to us with such art and with such grace that we were able to really savor and appreciate every single morsel of food that went into our mouths. We also did some really the word I wanted to use was like, I guess I should retract the word I wanted to use, because it was really overwhelming, and we understated it. I think in the understated is how we put it when we were creating this retreat, but it was overwhelming in its ability to bring out so much in people, because we did ceremony work, we did plant ritual, we did sound meditation, we did yoga nidra, we did yoga multiple times. Even in the work where it was physical, like the yoga, there's something very spiritual about yoga and the practice of it, and the way that Joanna taught it, the way that Callie taught it, in the sound meditation and the yoga nidra that we did, those meditation ceremonies, and the cacao ceremony, and we gave thanks to the earth, we gave thanks to the plants, and we were connected in more ways than just in the physical. So all of these elements brought together in a retreat environment, for me, I think it was such a mind, body, and soul experience that it's very hard to attain that triple experience with all 3 parts of you in your regular life. You really need to find a dedicated space and time for it, and this is why we retreat.
What was your biggest surprise?
I think for me, I went there with the intention of, and I said this to you, but I went there with the intention of facilitating everyone else's journey, and I ended up on my own. And even though I was absolutely still very much there as a facilitator and a leader of this retreat, I had some really amazing breakthroughs and some beautiful realizations that I didn't expect. So that was like such a wonderful bonus for me. And as a retreat leader and as somebody who teaches introspection and teaches meditation and coaches and does all of this stuff, to be able to receive that same gift while I'm teaching, while I'm in the experience of giving it, was profound. And for you,
Listeners,
what's yours?
Jen hugged me on purpose multiple times and initiated the hug. I sometimes have to hug Raper, so that was really nice.
Yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
the hug reaper.
Yeah. And I'm a copycat in this example, because I would like to have my own profound, deeply different answer. I don't. My biggest surprise was expecting to lead the transformational experiences and create the space that people could have their ahas. One of the exercises, the intense one that I just mentioned, I didn't realize in how long I'd been leading it that it had been so long since I participated in it. So, because of the way we had the time and the space, Jen, Callie, and I participated as partners in that first exercise. And it was life changing for me. And it's easy to, the whole shoemaker's kid with no shoes. It's easy to get in the habit of whatever you do, your craft, your art, your talent, your gift, whatever you do, it could be easy to keep giving it away in the respect that you forget to have a bite of it yourself. So having the bite of it myself was absolutely transformative. And personally, listeners, if you haven't experienced Jen's sound healing, I've been her backup dancer and we've put on events together. So I get excited because I'm like, when you give the non-musical chick a tambourine in the band, that's basically what Jen does to me. She's like, here, take these little chimes that anyone could do. That'll be your job. So normally I just want to be her backup dancer and assist as any way I can. In this moment, so I looked around, everyone else was taken care of. They were about to lie down and go on their journey receiving this sound healing. And I was like, dude, I'm about to receive it too. And I got to lay down and just really go on the whole voyage. In fact, this year, we're doing two of the retreats. That one, originally, we thought maybe we'll pick a new international magic setting every year. This one was so special that we said, we're going back to this region, definitely. And we will do a BEtreat again. We picked the dates immediately because so many people who are watching along said, okay, I'm so not missing this again. So we picked that immediately, but it was in your sound healing that I went so deeply into a meditation. I popped up and I was like, whoa, guys, we're coming back twice next year. We're going to do this again, and we're doing another one for couples. And the couples one isn't about connecting through deep intimacy and personal development work. That one's about connecting through play. So it'll be really cool because it'll have two different energies to the same backdrop of an experience. Jen, can you please share something that was absolutely hilarious during the retreat?
I mean, there were multiple moments. We did have one retreater, and she will not be named for the sake of her dignity. She was one of my one of the women I knew that I would connect with the most, just based on her reactions in our group chat before even getting there. But we were she was our clumsy retreater, and she was self-proclaimed clumsy, and had a tendency to fall and liked to tell us stories about her falls, and in fact had been in a compilation of falls on YouTube that someone had caught in like a security camera. Unbeknownst to her, she found herself in this compilation. That's how much of a clumsy faller she is, and it was always really comical. And she's great because she could laugh at herself. And as she was kind of proclaiming how she was going to be more graceful on this trip, and how she wore the right shoes when we went into town, and she was really like completely just sure of herself. She was going off on her own to go and check out the Duomo in I think it was Montepulciano.
Sienna.
Yeah, okay, it was Siena. Wherever it was, doesn't matter. It was very hilly and it's cobblestone, and so she was kind of walking off, announcing how she was going to be off on her own and wore the right shoes, and don't worry about me, guys. And boom, boom, there she goes, face to the floor as she's proclaiming it. I have to say, probably 30 or 40 people in a tour group, like right as it's happening, like the whole tour group had a halt and watch her just smash herself into the ground. And while that was happening, my reaction was, oh my God, let me go and help her. Oh my
Such a
God.
good person. You are such a good person.
Find Joanna, our spiritual goddess with purple hair and yoga vibes, fucking recording the whole thing.
I was like, please don't get up. Let me take a photo.
F-bomb in that one, because there's Joanna not helping, who, by the way, was much closer to the incident. She was recording it while I was running over to help. So, I mean, if anyone thinks I'm the hard New Yorker with the tough edge, maybe we should re-examine the dynamic here, because Joanna was the dark one with the camera.
And the best was you looked at me and you go, what is wrong with you? That is your first instinct. And I said, can you please just lie there for a second to make sure I get this photo?
So that was one of the beautiful things that happened, because even though there was this, like, obviously there was a bit of embarrassment, and obviously later that same day, that same retreater, who was obviously like having to, like, just find her pride in herself again, was kind of laughing at it in good humor. But that's a tough thing to endure when you kind of embarrass yourself in front of the world like that. Later that night at dinner in that same exact town in the piazza, that same woman we were able to get the local violinist who was walking around, playing for the restaurants, to give up his violin for a short amount of time. And she was able to play Amazing Grace for us and for all the people around on that violin, after having not played violin for many years. And it brought us all to tears. It was so beautiful. So not only did she redeem herself, she redeemed herself in the most beautiful public way as well.
It was so beautiful.
It was such a moment of like 360, that you got to see like the real human part of someone, and then also the really like deep spiritual amazing shine that someone can have in that same exact day in that same exact place. So I just loved that. I loved the juxtaposition of that. That was so great.
That was every part of that experience was hilarious and amazing and awesome. I loved the range that we experienced. Every day there would be at least a moment where you were deeply moved, absolutely present, crying, laughing, exploring, and feeling like you knew yourself and each other so well. I think one of my favorite things was realizing that retreats had been such a big part of my personal life, experiencing them. And then my professional life, in all of my time assisting Tao and going all over different workshops, retreat places, ashrams, and then traveling all through India with her. And Italy, specifically as a country, was such a big part of my story and my life, particularly in my 20s, that to now be back in my 40s with the only friend I had ever been there with in our 20s, which was so weird. Different times of life, different dudes as our partners, and we're randomly together in Italy. You are my only other friend who actively studies the Italian language. So both of us with our Italian gets funnier as the night gets on, by the way, listeners. But so the fact that you and I, who've been friends for 30 years, got to have this experience with each other, something that was a sentence last year, we were standing in the manifestation of it, something that was a country that stole our hearts so young, that your family is from and was such a big part of my story, that we got to share that with others was really meaningful. Two things came up for me. Some of the people on our trip had never traveled internationally before. And
Mm.
seeing them with their eyes and hearts filled with the wonder that happens when you're going through these ancient cities and you see that every building has seen more in their existence than we can ever expect to see ours. The antiquity, the beauty, the art of everything. Watching them experience that for the first time brought such vicarious joy. And also the reminder, guys, when we dream of things and we speak them into existence, we literally speak them into existence. So when Jen and I first decided, let's partner and do all the things like a year ago, and you were like, I want to do a podcast. And I was like, all right, then we're podcasters. Boom, mofos, we're podcasters. So when we said, well, you know, people have been asking for the immersive experience of this for a long time, I didn't want to hold the clipboard all by myself. But now that we're doing it together, let's just do it. Let's hold the clipboard. Let's go. And the fact that you and I did a meditation like 3 months ago and just already visualized ourselves standing in the result towards the end of the retreat saying, this could not have been more perfectly suited for what we wanted to do, what we wanted to give, how we wanted it to feel, and what we received in the process. And to be standing there on the last night and have the feeling match the dream was just such an important reminder that there's nothing we can do, say, or want that's too big to be possible. I remember when I first said to you and you were like, should we do like a small local retreat? I'm like, sure. Or we could do the first one to Tuscany.
That's right. You did say that. And I, in my usual way, immediately went into my, that's too much. Are you crazy? Why would we go all the way over there? We need to be local. We need to, and so, and as is fitting of our relationship, Joanna was able to switch my mindset around this retreat possibility, and it was exactly as it needed to be, and it was exactly as I would have wanted it. And with that, I have to ask you, Joanna, because you have always been the dreamer of the two of us. While I'm the dreamer in my own way, I'm also the person who's a bit more of the skeptic. Joanna doesn't do the skeptic part; she just does the dreamer. So it's good because someone needs to get me off the ground sometimes. But what would you, in this particular experience, is there anything that you would have changed or added?
Um, at one point, we were thinking, like, did people have enough free time to just integrate all the magic we were experiencing throughout the day in the way the itinerary was set up and at the villa? And then yet when we looked at it activity by activity, there was no fat to trim.
Hmm.
So that was one I thought might be the answer. And then upon reflection, not even. The only thing I would change, and this is a big joke and it came up a million times, there are certain things I shouldn't be trusted with. I really can't convert things like time, military time. Why? Why? I'm like, it's 23 o'clock and I don't know what to do with that information. Okay. Is it early? Is it late?
Side note, they don't actually call it 23 o'clock. Only Joanna does.
Only I do. Because if you're going to have ridiculous time, I'm going to say it in a ridiculous manner to highlight said ridiculosity.
Mhm,
Ridiculous.
mhm.
So, military time, I would change. Let's just do away with that as a policy. And converting money, I would also change. It's not as big of a deal now because you can ask things like, hey, Siri, what is this in euro? So that does make it easier. But while we're here, I feel like every listener needs to know fine, I can't do fractions. I can't do my times tables. There are whole number concepts that just elude me. I'm not ever going to talk about algebra or geometry in my grown up life. However, the random thing that I could do, and now I have proof, guys. I can turn Celsius into Fahrenheit. You know what, Jen? I'm not even scared. Give me one right now. Put me on the spot.
Wait, are we going? Okay, you can only go one direction, right? You can't go
Give me a
backwards.
Celsius. I could go both ways.
What's
I'm
what's
crazy like that.
17 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit? And no asking Siri.
She just chimed in. Did you just say 17? Is that what
Yeah,
you're asking me?
I did say that.
Okay. So it's a very scientific method, guys. First, you double it. That's 34. Then you add 30. That's 64. Then you minus a little. So it's probably like 62.
Okay,
Now,
now we
hey
can ask.
Siri, what is 17 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit? 62.6, bitches.
Damn, girl, you got that down on lock.
I feel like we should start a carnival with my one skill.
I feel like no one's gonna come to that carnival, but I like your positive thinking
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah. And, this is one of those moments where, how Jen said, I'm a dreamer and I can help release the skepticism in her. This is one where her skepticism might be healthy and it might keep us from going into a very specific niche market of carnivals that no one's going to visit.
And we
Okay.
don't actually want to live in, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, okay, so we kind of listen. I hope in this episode we've given our listeners a bit of understanding of why it was so magical, and they've gotten a little glimpse here and there of some of the highlights. But I think the bottom line is what we really want to express is the reason we retreat is so that we can take that special time out for ourselves to reconnect with who we are. And maybe in some beautiful way reconnect with our goals and figure out, are we living life purposefully in the way that we want to live it? Are we getting the most out of the time that we have? Are we spending it with the people we really want to spend it with? And this way, when we come back into the world that we live in, into our everyday world, we can reassess, having had that space and time to really think about those things. And believe it or not, most of it is not even active. Like these retreats, the information flows to you without really trying. When we're in meditation, when we're in yoga, which by the way, I want to just side note to this and say that I got to do one of Joanna's yoga classes. And being someone that claims to have the gift of gab, we know that she does. But in yoga, her tone and her gift of gab is so different because her cadence is so different. And the part of her that is so deep and so spiritual comes through so beautifully and in such flow that you forget you're listening to the same person that you're talking to in workshop or that you're hearing on a podcast. It's like almost a different side of her that we don't get to always see. So if for no other reason than to experience that, the yoga with Joanna was just absolutely beyond my expectation. But back to what I was saying, integration after a workshop is so beautiful and so profound in our lives that I'm sorry, after a retreat, I should say, that I think that every single person that has the means and has someone that can like take over for their kids or watch their job responsibilities or whatever, even for a short amount of time, even for a weekend, because we'll be offering those kind of retreats too. And there are other ones that besides ours, of course. Retreat is so important for those reasons. You need to be able to take that space so that when you come back to your life, you're living the life you want and not the life. It's what Joanna kind of created as the mantra for best life ever. right? It's the Joanna, why don't you just like repeat that for us? What do we say about best life ever? It's about creating the life you want.
It's about creating your life and stop reacting to it. And to put the perfect pin on what Jen's saying right now, most likely, whatever the reason is that you think is stopping you from doing this or any other kind of retreat for yourself is also one of your biggest reasons to go. So whether it's like personally, I missed my son's birthday. My travel day on the way home was his 7th birthday. And I just thought, okay, well, I could either not host the retreat on the day when it's available and not have this experience with Jen and these incredible people because it's his birthday. Or what I could do is model for him that in addition to being your present, amazing, loving, adoring, fantastic mama, that I'm also a whole person that has needs and meets those needs. And because of that, I come back more present, more excited, more in love with life and my family. So the whole adage that you can't pour from an empty cup, these retreat experiences are huge cup fillers. If you don't feel like being able to get away for a weekend or a week as possible, start with a day one. Just
Mhm.
start with something where you are with what you have. Don't put off this kind of experience because it enhances every other aspect of our lives.
We'll also be incorporating some day retreats into our schedules. So we'll be announcing those soon, both on Instagram and in future podcasts. So definitely look out for those announcements. But Joanna, why don't you tell them, just so that anyone who's listening, when our We Treat for couples and our BEtreat dates will be in Tuscany, in case anyone's interested, they could reach out to us.
Thank you for asking, Jen, because I live in Florida and we were just with no power for days and just went through Hurricane Milton, which we could discuss on another episode. But so for me, planning retreats was a lot more exciting than planning for a hurricane. So in doing so, we chose our dates for We Treat, our couple experience. That will be May 2nd to May 8th, 2025. And our BEtreat, our retreat for women, that will be October 10th to October 16th. We have early bird pricing for both of those for people who register before the end of this calendar year, before New Year's Eve 2024. So that's 2 months. I would suggest doing that just because you get the best rates, but they are limited in size. These are intentionally curated small group experiences so that people get the most out of them. So for the couples, there will be 6 couples that our retreat can accommodate. And for the individual one, there are 11 individuals. So if you are interested, reach out to us on our socials or on our websites and we'll get you all of the information so you could pick which one is your flavor.
And it'll be in our show notes as well. So we are hoping to see many of you there. And as I announced before, we'll have lots of other smaller ones coming up. So be on the lookout. It was great to see you again today, Joanna. I've missed you in the last week, but we'll be catching up again on Wednesday at Best Life Ever.
That's right. Peace out, everyone.